Okay, so we're here today with Michau van Speyk. I hope I said that right. He is an autism advocate and a pretty awesome guy. So I'm going to ask him some questions and he's going to answer them. So, Michau, why don't we start with how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was age 7, and I was diagnosed by world-renowned autism expert Dr. Wendy Roberts.
Cool. That's kind of late to be diagnosed. Do you agree?
Yeah. So why I was so late with with getting the diagnosis was I me and my family are originally from South Africa, and we only came here when I was 5, and autism wasn't as well known uh, back then as it is now. And I don't think doctors at that point in South Africa really knew what autism was.
Okay.
And so I went to like the school in my area, but then they said, he's got some behavioral challenges. You want to take him to another school and get him assessed and have him there for a few months, see what's what. And then the teacher I had at that school, she called my parents one day and said, yeah, he's on the spectrum. I've got a grandson on the spectrum. And so I want to get him diagnosed. But as we all know, even back then, and that was like 20 something years ago, I was 2001 or 2002. I can't even remember now. So roughly around 20 years ago. And she got me kind of on, I was near the bottom of the wait list, but she kind of got me in the back door with Dr. Wendy Roberts. So I kind of got to butt the wait list, which I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's immoral, but at the same time, like sometimes it does happen.
Yeah, it's true. I really believe that there's a reason for everything. And I think that there was a reason that you got to see Dr. Roberts and get your diagnosis when you did. So
have you heard of Dr. Roberts?
I have heard quite a bit about her, and I've read she works extensively at Sick Kids, I think, right? So
not anymore. No. So she stopped working at Sick Kids, then she worked at Hall and Bloorview for a while, and now she started up her own place called iSand, which is at Yonge and Finch.
Right. Nice. Yeah, I've never met her. I would love to if she's watching. But yeah, that would be awesome. So when you were in public school, right? For most of your schooling?
Yeah.
Or all of your schooling?
Most of my schooling. I did 6 years of private school in high school.
Okay. We're going to talk about that in a second. So tell me about school. Like, what was the easiest thing for you? What was the most difficult part about school for you?
I don't know that school at the beginning was easy at all. I think it was really hard because I got bullied a lot for a variety of reasons. And I was behind academically in terms of math and science. I've always had very, what's what I'm looking for? Very bad learning disabilities with math and science. I've been seen by, I don't even know how many educational psychologists. Like I couldn't even begin to tell you. Like the list is just like goes on and on and on and on. And then going for appointment after appointment at Sick Kids because of health problems I had back then. Yeah.
Okay. So, but you were bullied, you said.
Yeah.
Was it? I think I read somewhere in one of you're very active on social media, and I think I read somewhere in one of your posts that you had some trouble with a teacher bullying you. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I had a couple of experiences with that, but the first incident occurred from grades, beginning of grade 7 till middle of grade 8, and then I just kind of walked out of the class and said, I'm not attending this class anymore. Like I refuse to attend. And so the school tried everything they could to get me to attend, but I ended up winning that battle, and they just gave up and said, you know what, let him do whatever he wants. Like, I feel like I was at a really negative point in my life at that point, and I feel like the whole
Mm.
school community were walking on eggshells around me because they didn't want to upset me because they knew that would lead to an outburst.
Mm-hmm. What was the teacher doing that was that she was or he was bullying you?
It was more verbal. It was like he would just like yell at us, and he would just like get very frustrated for no reason. Like I
Mm.
understand the class is like being rowdy and not listening, like that's one thing, but when it just like because we have learning disabilities in science and they're not understanding the way he's teaching us, which he didn't teach us in the best way either. Like he
Right.
instead of teaching by
Yeah.
the book, he would put on a bunch of these Bill Nye the Science Guy movies and all that, and I just
Yeah.
I
Not
despise Bill
helpful.
Nye the Science Guy. Like I think he like Bill Nye the Science Guy, in my opinion, is just cocky and he thinks he knows everything and he thinks he's like with the likes of like Albert Einstein or Thomas Edison or Stephen Hawking. And I'm like, no, you're nowhere close to those guys, bud. Like, calm yourself.
So did you what did you try to do to kind of rectify that situation before you got fed up and had to walk out?
I tried
Like what was
I talked to my parents, and then we went to the principal and we went to other teachers, and it was you know, they said, well, we rarely have difficulties with him in our classes, so I don't know why it's a difficult fight for him in
right.
this class every single day. And like even with the teachers
Mm.
I like the most, like I had pretty much one of my favorite teachers for 3 years in a row, grade 4, 5, and 6. And yeah, I'd have my odd difficult day with her, but for the most part, I feel like I was pretty good.
Yeah. So that was in public school, right?
Yeah. And then
And
I
then
started high school in the public school system, but that went horribly wrong and led to my expulsion from my first high school. And then I went to private school, and that did wonders for me.
great. What, if you don't mind talking about what happened that led to your being expelled? I'd be
I
interested
don't want to
to.
get too much into it
That's fine.
because it's
Yeah.
something I'm not proud of, but it had been leading up for years and years. It was like some of the same kids from elementary school that had been bullying me for
Mm.
like the better part of a decade at
Yeah.
that point, and they, I guess, went to the same high school as me as well, and I just got to the point where like I couldn't take it
Just kind of bubbled
anymore.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I um I talked to my parents, they talked to the principal, vice principal, no one did anything. So we went to the superintendent, they did nothing. We went to the head of the whole school board, they did nothing. We went to police, they did nothing. And
Mm.
then I lashed out and I attacked a vice principal. Um
Mm.
and there was some other stuff as well that I did, but I don't really
Okay.
want to talk
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
fine. Yeah. And what school did you go to? Like what private school did you end up going to? That
I
was
went to an
amazing.
amazing private school called the YMCA Academy.
Oh, I think I've heard of it. It's
Yeah,
downtown, right?
so yeah, it's downtown. And when I went there, it was only grades 9 to 12. But since I left, they now offer grades 7 and 8 programs. They're
Awesome.
expanding, but I think just the high school part of it, I think like when I was there, I think we were between 40 and 60 students when I left. But when I first got there, one of the smallest high schools I think in all of North America, we only had myself and 11 other students. So it's like 12 of us, grades 9 through
Wow.
12.
Yeah. Are you still
And
in
so like
contact with any of those people?
a few here and there. And what I
Yeah.
really liked about my first year there was there was no, I guess, cliques. There was no like popular crowd,
Right.
unpopular crowd. Like everyone just kind of got along and knew each other because there was only 12 of us.
Right.
And I got some pretty cool experiences from that. Like um I got to talk at a Jane Goodall conference at, was it York or U of T? I can't even remember now. But she was presenting and she needed some other speakers, and I was asked. Me and a couple other students from my school were asked to be speakers at that. That was really nerve
That's
wracking. That was the first.
awesome.
That was my first
Yeah.
public speaking thing ever.
Wow. That's
Yeah, I was
awesome.
nervous. Like
What did you talk about?
I don't even remember. Like I had to make a presentation for it, and it was just I spent a
Yeah.
lot of time, but it was so long ago now. I don't even really remember.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so what can we talk a little bit now about um, your experiences with making friends and like the social side of it? Has that been challenging for you? I know you talked a little bit about being bullied, but aside from that, is it
I feel
easy
like
for
it
you to
got
make
easier
friends?
as I got older. Like as I got older and kind of discovered different interests, I feel like it got a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier. I feel like uh, joining extracurricular clubs really kind of helped me to branch out and make friends.
Yeah.
So I joined like in grades 1, 2, and 3. I was on the track and field team. In grade 4, 5, and 6, I was on the basketball team. In grade 7, I was also on the ice hockey team, the swim team.
Wow.
And then in grade 8, I was also not only on those teams, I was on the volleyball team and the two-hand touch football team. So I was on like, I don't know, 7 or 8 sports teams by the time I
Yeah.
reached grade 8. And so I was
Awesome.
rarely ever at school because I was always away at tournaments and stuff. And
Yeah.
I was also in the soccer team as well. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I made a lot of friends
Nice.
through that. Actually, one of my
Yeah.
friends I played on the basketball team with um, actually became a pro basketball player over in Germany.
Really? That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's 6'11", I think.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm six
Like
foot
a
three and a
like a
half and
giant.
I'm 6'3" and a half and I feel short.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're probably looking up to him, most
Oh
people.
yeah.
Um, okay, so can I know one of the things that you're pretty passionate about is toilet training and having supporting children through that. So can
Yeah.
we talk a little bit, tell me a little bit about your experiences and why it's something that's important to you?
Well, I just feel like parents get judged harshly. Parents of kids with not only autism but all disabilities get judged harshly
Mm-hmm.
by parents of kids without disabilities when their child is not toilet trained by a certain age. And I feel
Yeah.
like other parents feel like the parents are being lazy, but there could be a whole number of reasons why the child is not toilet trained. It could be
Yeah.
health reasons. Like with me, I was battling a lot of health conditions, and my doctors, said to my parents, "Don't worry about the toilet training. We'll focus on that later on." And
Right.
that's why I was very late with toilet training.
Mm-hmm. Um, do you have any advice for parents doing toilet training with some of their older children? Things that you wish maybe your parents had done differently, or things that they did that was amazing that you wish that everyone would do?
I think the one thing that I wish everyone would do that my parents did is just let the child lead the way and let them show you when they're ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Like
think that
I
that's
was only fully daytime toilet trained at 10 years old and
mm-hmm.
nighttime at 17 and a half. I'm now
Yeah,
26.
yeah.
So in
I
a
think that
year and
that's
a
a
half, it will
really
be exactly 10 years since I've been fully nighttime toilet trained.
yeah. I think that's a
And
really
that can
important
get kind of
lesson.
like, I guess, embarrassing because I went to overnight camp, so I had to deal with that, which was kind of embarrassing. And
Mm-hmm.
then overnight school trips was also a nightmare. And with the public school system, teachers are not allowed to help students with toileting, whereas the private school system, they are.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so when I was in high school at the private school, we went on an overnight trip or multi overnight trip. It was like, I think 3 or 4 nights. I can't remember now, but my one female teacher had to help me with that, and that was really embarrassing.
Yeah, I can
Like she was nice
imagine.
about it, but it was just like very embarrassing.
Um, okay. And I wonder now if you can talk to me a little bit about transitioning from the child system or the youth system into kind of adult and adult services and what that looked like for you and what it looks like for a lot of other people.
Yeah, that's kind of the worst part of the autism community, I feel, because you
Mm-hmm.
get all these services from like when you're just born until you're 17, 18, and then at 18 you get cut off. And that was under the old liberal government that we had for 15 years between Dalton McGinty and Kathleen Wynne. And then they would put you onto something called ODSP, which is like, it's called Ontario Disability Support Pension. And you get hardly anything. It's not enough to live in Toronto, which is one of the most expensive cities in the world. I mean, you could live on it comfortably maybe in small town Ontario, like Barrie or London or Peterborough, but not Toronto. No, like you're not going to live on what you get. And you also get passport funding, which is respite funding, which under the youth part of it is called SSAH, I think.
Yeah.
I think it stands for Special Services at Home or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you finished high school, what was the next step for you?
That would be transitioning into the workforce, because I didn't want to go to college or university. I got denied by pretty much every college and university I got that I applied for, and so I just was like, no, I'm not gonna. And I don't think it was based on grades, because I finished high school on a strong note. I think it was based on the whole incident at my first high school where I got expelled, and I think that kind of maybe set up some red flags for them, even though I had changed and matured quite a bit. But I still think they kind of saw some red flags there.
And I know you've told me in the past that you work as an actor, and you work with your dad on sets, movie sets and TV sets.
Yeah, so the acting has kind of been put aside right now. I'm trying to find a new agent, and I'm just working with my dad behind the scenes, behind the camera, lifting heavy film equipment. My dad hurt his back, or re-injured his back in 2019. About 6 months before I was born, he was in a motorcycle accident. He broke his back. He's not paralyzed, but basically his doctors don't want him doing any heavy lifting. So I pretty much get paid to go out on set with him and help him with heavy lifting.
That's
I'm
good.
pretty much just a pack mule, basically.
A very important pack mule. I can imagine that he's happy to have you.
Yeah, and yeah, it's been kind of weird during the pandemic. Like, I never thought I'd be like starting out my full-time working career, because this is like my first full-time job. I never thought that I would be starting out my full-time working career in a global pandemic. Like, I never thought that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be an option for any of us. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do advocating for services and for people with autism. Tell me about the OAC.
So I joined the OAC originally in 2012, looking to make more friends. And
the OAC, just for everyone who doesn't know, the OAC stands for the Ontario Autism Coalition.
Yes. And so I found them and I started kind of posting in the group and introducing myself. And then I was approached by the vice president at the time, Laura, who then became our president, who's now our past president, because we just elected a new president in January of this year. And I was on the board of directors from April of 2015 up until about end of March, and then I resigned to pursue other opportunities within the advocacy space. But yeah, I'd served quite a long time, like almost 6 years. So I was like, holy crud. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time.
I was a month shy of 6 years.
A month shy. Wow. What kind of advocacy stuff did you do when you were on the board? I
helped organize rallies on the front lawn of Queen's Park, which Doug Ford promised us we wouldn't have to be on the front lawn of Queen's Park, but we all know how that went. I did a lot of TV interviews. I did a lot of radio interviews. I did a lot of newspaper interviews, mainly for the Toronto Star. What else? Me and a group of parents from the Ontario Autism Coalition went to Queen's Park request period every day for 2 years, Monday to Thursday, before the pandemic hit. And we tried to get meetings. We actually ended up getting a meeting with Doug Ford himself in early December of 2018. And that was, I felt like everything we said went in one ear and out the other. Like, I felt like he just didn't really care what we had to say. He just wanted to get the meeting with us so that it was
He
a good PR move.
So he could say that he had the meeting.
Yeah. And so he could lie to people and say, oh, it was a productive meeting and I really liked what they had to say. But it was all BS because we were there. We know what was said behind closed doors. I'm not really legally allowed to speak about what was said behind closed doors. But yeah, pretty much I felt like everything we said to him, he had his little assistant person take notes and stuff, but I feel like most of it just went in one ear, out the other.
Right. That's probably very frustrating because you worked really hard to get that meeting, and then to not feel like you were validated or like heard.
I felt like he only really heard like 5% of what we said, and the other 95% just went in one ear, out the other. And the fact that he had this little assistant person taking notes, I don't know. I think like he did that to make it seem like he was really listening to everything we were saying, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah. So that sounds like a terrible experience. Have you ever had any positive experiences with politicians, or maybe not conservative politicians?
I've had meetings with liberal MPPs, Mike Schreiner of the Green, NDP, and I've had a few positive meetings with backbenchers for the PC party. I met with Jeremy Roberts and Amy Fee on separate occasions. I felt those meetings went really well. I'm actually friends with Amy Fee and Jeremy Roberts. Contrary to popular opinion, I know that that's not a very popular thing to be friends with anyone in the government, but I try and remain as nonpartisan as possible. But yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Let me just see if there's anything else that I have here on my list of questions that I want to ask you. I already asked you this in terms of toileting, but I think in terms of just education in general, or advocacy, is there something that you wish that more parents were doing, or that all parents were doing for their children with autism or special needs?
I feel like all parents are trying their best. I feel like, I know that ABA is the most scientifically proven therapy, but I know that there are cases where ABA doesn't work for a child necessarily. And so, if it's not working, then, try speech and occupational therapy, which is what I did growing up for many, many years, from age 7 to age 17.
Yeah. So did you ever do ABA? I think I read somewhere that you never did it.
No, I did speech and occupational therapy through the Geneva Center for Autism in downtown Toronto.
Hey.
And actually, the therapist I had still works there to this day.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
They must know what they're up to. Like they must know what they're doing. That's a long time.
Yeah. And one of the other things I really like about the Ontario Autism Coalition is on a regular year when there's not a global pandemic, we have social events throughout the year. So we have like summer picnics where all kids and parents are welcome, and grandparents and any family member of anyone with autism are welcome. Amy Fee came to our 2018 picnic with her 2 sons and their dog, or 2 dogs actually. And she kind of stayed away from politics and just wanted to be there, just kind of
as a community member.
Yeah, as a community member, because she's got a son. I think both her kids are actually on the spectrum, and then Jeremy Roberts has a brother on the spectrum. And then Christine Elliott, the Minister of Health, has a child on the spectrum, and she was married to former, Conservative MP Jim Flaherty.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't know that about Christine Elliott.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any final words that anything you want to say? Is there anything that we missed that we were going to talk about?
Like, the parents, my message would be just keep on trying and keep on encouraging your kids and keep on working hard and try. I know it's hard to, hear criticism from parents of kids who don't have any disabilities, but just know that you're trying your hardest and that there are other parents out there who understand what you're going through. Maybe not to an exact extent, but to a lesser or greater degree. And, I think that's why autism has such a strong community, because parents understand what other parents are going through. And that's why I really like the Ontario Autism Coalition picnics and other social events, because if a kid has a meltdown, there's no judgment. It's just like, oh, that's just part of our community. If a kid's not toilet trained, oh yeah, that's just part of our community. It's just like there's
Just
no
is what it
judgment.
is.
And parents are
Yeah.
kind of looking out, like, quite a few kids that come to our events, they're runners and they don't know about safety. So there's always parents kind of ready to run and grab the kid so they don't get too far.
Mhm.
And they're always kind of looking
Yeah.
out for each other. And I think that's a very beautiful thing because it shows that we're one big dysfunctional family. Because I know we have our fights and stuff about various topics and stuff, but
Yeah.
in the end, we're all one big family and we're just trying to fight for the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for giving me your time and for sharing your experiences with us. I hope that in the future you'll come back and we'll be able to do this again and chit chat about other things.
Yeah, I'm 100% game to do that, and
You're down.
thanks for having me, and yeah, I'm hopeful to do this again.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you.